A double sign and trade, could that be the solution to the Jonathan Kuminga Golden State Warriors standoff, as well as the Josh Giddey Chicago Bulls standoff? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. I've said it before, but right now, about 70% of you watching this, you're not subscribed. Let's fix that. Hit that subscribe button. So check this out from Jake Fisher. Maybe this makes a lot of sense, but this was not something we were thinking about, that Jonathan Kuminga and Josh Giddey, the solution to both of their restricted free agency standoffs with their incumbent teams might simply be to trade them for each other. Jake Fisher said, I can report there have been multiple teams that have reached out to Josh Giddey's representation about having interest in him. Golden State is one of them. Golden State would be interested, dependent on the machinations of in some type of Josh Giddey, Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade, from my understanding. Now, we've talked about this a bit in the past, that the Chicago Bulls were potentially a landing spot for Jonathan Kuminga, a team that could attempt to trade for him, but we always presented that with the Josh Giddey situation as being something that would have to be resolved first. The Bulls would come up with a solution to Josh Giddey's contractual situation and then would pivot to make a trade, ideally featuring someone like Ayo Dosunmu, in order to land Jonathan Kuminga. Now, what if, though, the Chicago Bulls and the Golden State Warriors, who find themselves in similar situations with wing free agents, young players who want more money than they seem comfortable in giving, what if they just swap them for each other? Could that make some sense? Well, in terms of actually executing that kind of a trade, it is fairly difficult. There would be some serious hurdles to overcome logistically, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But from a basketball perspective, this actually kind of makes sense. And here's why. You look at the Chicago Bulls roster right now. Now, plenty of flexibility. They right now are 43 million below the first apron. So that if they trigger a hard cap at the first apron, I'll get into more of the logistics in a minute, but that would certainly be easy to do. But you look at the Bulls roster, Josh Giddey currently sitting as a restricted free agent. But what do the Bulls have too much of? Point guards. You've got Ayo Dosunmu, who I think is a very good player. I think he is a little bit underrated around the NBA. Kobe White, you've got plenty of guys who can handle the ball. Javon Carter, frankly, was underutilized with the Bulls last season. You have ball handlers. That's even after moving on from Lonzo Ball in trade this past summer, or this summer, I should say, and bringing in Isaac Okoro, because Isaac Okoro can create for you in a secondary role as well. So even without Josh Giddey, the Bulls are in pretty good shape when it comes to ball handlers and primary initiators / creators. So wouldn't it make sense to add a piece like Jonathan Kuminga, who's more of a finisher, more of a scorer, somebody who's going to be the guy to get the ball on the wing and put it in the basket or get it in the post and then find the mid-range shot? That's what Jonathan Kuminga can do, whereas Josh Giddey is somebody who needs the ball in his hands, needs to be initiating, needs to be creating, and there's a bit of overlap with some of the other guards on the Bulls roster. Conversely, when we look at Golden State, what they've got with Jonathan Kuminga, their issues with him is that, yes, he can put the ball in the basket, but he's just not efficient enough at it. In fact, it's the three-point shooting. Kuminga largely bet on his three-point shooting bouncing back, or at least improving last season, and instead he turned in the worst three-point percentage season of his career, just 31% from three, and I'm rounding up to get there. Very difficult to put Jonathan Kuminga on the floor if he's not going to be defended behind the three-point line when you're playing with Draymond Green, Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry. He's not a great fit in that regard. But for the same reasons that we look at Al Horford as such a great potential signing, and we do think that's going to happen eventually with the Golden State Warriors, the reason for that is because Horford can stretch out to the three-point line and is a ball mover. He's very good at initiating, at creating actions, and maintaining the ball moving. And so Al Horford, I think, is a great fit for Golden State in their system. Now, Josh Giddey would not have the ball in his hands nearly as much with Golden State, but nonetheless, as a ball mover rather than a ball stopper like Jonathan Kuminga sometimes can be, I think there's some interest there in Giddey. And you look as well, the three-point percentage, it did come up. Now, how much do you buy that he is now a 38% three-point shooter? That would be up to the Warriors to decide, but that is the number that he put up last season, 38% from three, significantly better than Jonathan Kuminga. And you look at the efficiency overall, 47% from the field, and that's on a Bulls team where, frankly, there's not a lot of other scoring options to take the pressure off of him. Giddey plays a very, very fast style of play. The Golden State Warriors have been known to do so as well. 8 rebounds, 7.2 assists, career high there. You're not going to necessarily see, again, the ball in Giddey's hands nearly as much if he did join the Golden State Warriors, but he is more the type of player, a big wing that can move the basketball, that can also now, if you buy the shooting from last season, can give you a little bit of floor spacing. He makes some sense in the Warriors system. Frankly, Kuminga makes more sense for the Chicago Bulls, and I think Giddey makes more sense for the Golden State Warriors. So just trade these guys for each other and call it a day, right? Why don't we just do that? Well, the problem comes in with a little something called base year compensation. And the way that works is that if a player is using bird rights or is eligible for bird rights, their team is above the cap, and they're going to be getting more than a 20% increase on their previous salary, which we're assuming both Kuminga and Josh Giddey would be getting. In that scenario, in a sign and trade, the player for the outgoing team would count as half of their salary. So let's say that Jonathan Kuminga were to get, to make the math easy, let's just say $24 million in his first season. For the Golden State Warriors, he would count as $12 million going out. For the Chicago Bulls, in this case, he would count as $24 million coming in. And the same would be true the other way. So if both players were to get the same contract, effectively, the Warriors would be trading away Jonathan Kuminga at $12 million and accepting Josh Giddey at $24 million. And the same would be true vice versa for the Chicago Bulls. So effectively, what that would mean is if the Golden State Warriors don't want to trigger a hard cap at the first apron, the Chicago Bulls, I'm not worried about. They can trigger a hard cap at the first apron. They would need to send out a little bit more salary in the trade, but taking back more salary than they send out is not a big deal if they hard cap themselves at the first apron. By the way, taking back more salary in a trade, I should specify, than you send out does trigger a hard cap at the first apron. But for the Golden State Warriors, that could potentially become problematic because you want to sign Al Horford, because you want to sign DeAnthony Melton, maybe Malcolm Brogdon, who, by the way, Jake Fisher noted that the Warriors are a team that do have interest in Malcolm Brogdon. I'm surprised that Brogdon is still out there as a free agent right now. But when you look at the Warriors, they're just $25 million below that first apron. And so if you add in Josh Giddey, let's say, at $24 million, and you've hard capped yourself at the first apron, now you don't have money to give to Al Horford. Now you don't have money to give to DeAnthony Melton, to Malcolm Brogdon, to Seth Curry, to anybody else. So the solution to that would be to find a way to send out more salary in the trade than you take back. And that's where, if you're the Warriors, you have to get into trading away, say, a Buddy Hield. So Buddy Hield's $9 million plus the money that Jonathan Kuminga would count as outgoing salary. Maybe you even have to toss in a little bit extra somewhere. And that's where it gets really painful for the Golden State Warriors. Yes, you could say, well, we're bringing in Josh Giddey, but if the final valuation is both Jonathan Kuminga and, say, Buddy Hield or Moses Moody or something like that, and you're getting back Josh Giddey plus you're getting Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton, Seth Curry, whatever you're going to get by not triggering that first apron hard cap and allowing yourself to use the full taxpayer mid-level exception, which would then trigger a hard cap at the second apron. Look, I know it's a lot of cap gymnastics and everything in order to make something like that work, but the bottom line is it's very, very tricky. And if you're the Warriors, you have to be very convinced that Josh Giddey is going to be significantly better for you than Jonathan Kuminga. You have to be convinced enough to be willing to part with, say, Buddy Hield in this example, or someone like that. So that's where this gets particularly tricky to pull off. But worth noting that the Warriors are expressing interest in Josh Giddey. You know, teams under the new collective bargaining agreement, they are finding ways to get creative and get deals done. So I wouldn't put it past the Bulls and the Warriors, who both find themselves stuck in very similar situations where they've got a free agent who wants more money than they're willing to pay. And right now that free agent is maybe not the perfect fit. I do think Josh Giddey is a better fit long-term with the Chicago Bulls than Jonathan Kuminga is with the Golden State Warriors. I would think there would be a little bit more urgency on the part of the Warriors to try to get something done here. But could the solution for both teams simply be to find a way to trade these two players for each other? This is certainly something to keep an eye on. And again, from a purely basketball perspective, I think it would make sense for both sides. But you guys let me know. What do you think about a Josh Giddey for Jonathan Kuminga swap? Is it worth the trouble for the Warriors and for the Chicago Bulls? Let me know in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.